In the 15 years since the release of Battlefield 1942, the franchise has explored many different eras of modern war history. And it seems that now more than ever, EA is at a crossroads of which battleground to take the series to next, after their most recent release focused on World War I. Over the course of a few videos, I'm going to be discussing the different eras or time periods in which EA and DICE could focus upon in their next instalment, which is expected to be released in 2018. In this video, I will cover the possibility of Battlefield returning to one of the world wars. Now, the immediate possibility for the next Battlefield game which springs to mind is the series remaining in World War I. This would allow DICE to further expand on the gameplay which they have already built in Battlefield 1, bringing new stories and locations from the war to end all wars. But realistically, does the series actually have to change eras? Well, when you consider the huge range of different locations across Battlefield 1, what more could DICE do to keep the conflict fresh for people, rather than simply creating an updated version of Battlefield 1? Especially since the DLC pack seemed to be filling in a lot of the gaps in content which people were asking for. Another thing that people have been asking for is a return to the game's roots, by focusing on the Second World War. One argument against returning to World War II would be that Activision has just recently announced the Call of Duty franchise will be returning to this time period, and if Battlefield also returns to this time, then it could be said that DICE are simply jumping on the bandwagon. And this is similar to the fact that Activision have been criticised for using the success of Battlefield 1 to its advantage by returning to a classical conflict. But in all honesty, I think it would be an unfair accusation to say they're using each other's success, as this is simply where these franchises began. There are many ways in which Battlefield could distinguish itself from Call of Duty. One in particular is the campaign. The single player content was focused around war stories, which told separate stories, and each campaign acted almost as a tutorial for the different styles of combat, whether that be in planes, tanks, on horses, or in the infantry. This format was refreshing as it allowed you to quickly get through the self-contained story of each soldier, while getting some closure on each character before moving on to the next one. This really sets itself apart from Call of Duty, which has used a multiple character angle before. However, to resolve each character's plot, the entire campaign had to be completed, almost diluting the ability of the player to become immersed in that character. Another way it could distinguish itself is to focus entirely on the Pacific theatre of World War II. This would also allow the game to be completely different to Battlefield 1, as a European theatre focused game may be too similar in setting to World War I. The huge variety of islands in the Pacific could provide so many different locations with unique environments for the players, and could provide enough content to warrant an entire game's focus. It would also be the first time since 2009 that a Battlefield game has featured the Second World War, and that game was only available on Xbox Live Arcade and the PlayStation Network. And by the time the next game comes round, it will have been almost 9 years, which is more than half of the time which Battlefield has been a franchise. And in my eyes, it's definitely not too soon to return to the Second World War. The Pacific theatre also lends itself excellently to many different styles of game mode, whether that is the linear play of Rush or Operations, or the wide, expansive play of Conquest, as the atoll scene in Battlefield 1943 could make a reappearance on a much larger scale. By realigning certain game modes to the gameplay of Battlefield 1943, it could completely change the way the game is played, especially reintroducing some locations having aircraft carriers as the spawn points, and this would see the return of beach assault gameplay, much like the Battlefield 4 map Paracel Storm. Personally, I love this style of gameplay. However, having both teams start out on aircraft carriers would also be extremely interesting, as it would be a straight race to see who could reach the command posts first, while avoiding artillery and dive bombing aircraft. Battlefield 1 allowed DICE to really introduce a new look to Battlefield by returning to a time of first-person shooter nostalgia, where the technology used by the player wasn't overwhelming and the gameplay was stripped back into something which felt more real, something which people could really connect with due to the historical significance, and to me it would be the perfect place to return to. So now it's over to you. How would you feel about Battlefield returning to one of the world wars? Let me know down in the comments. Once again, thanks for watching Media Rumble, and I hope I'll see you next time.